Michael, many UK businesses are either doing business or contemplating doing business in the United States, but a common question we get is about state taxation. But what do people need to know about it?
In the US, there are multiple layers of taxation. There's a federal layer, which applies to the entire US operations, but there's also a state layer of taxation. State tax is determined by each individual state's tax rules, and a business can be exposed to those state tax rules by having a connection with the state. The common term for this is Nexus, and a business that has Nexus with a state may have to comply with the state's tax rules.
So what exactly is Nexus?
So Nexus is generally a connection with the state, but that can be a physical, tangible connection such as an office, a factory, a warehouse. It can be employees, it can be staff, it can be dependent contractors, but it can also be an economic nexus. So it could be that you derive revenue from customers located in that state.
For many UK businesses operating in the US, they may well have revenue, employees and physical locations in many different states. How do they go about splitting that?
So a state will determine its slice of the pie by using its apportionment factor. Now the apportionment factor is a formula which is used to work out how much of the federal profits are taxable in each state. In the past, states used a combined apportionment factor which would look at revenue, payroll and assets, but the modern approach now is to look at a single weighted sales factor which will look at the revenue from one state over entire revenue to give you a percentage.
So if I'm a UK business and I've got customers and offices in, say, Los Angeles and New York, how do I go about dealing with my state taxation?
So operationally, the first thing that happens is once a business determines it has Nexus in a state, it must register with that state's tax authorities. Once registered, it will receive a tax identification number and will be directed to complete a state tax return. The state tax return will include the federal income, the apportionment factors, and the relevant proportion of the federal profits that are subject to that state's tax.
And when do I need to do this by?
Well, generally, a business should register with a state before it begins conducting trade. However, in practicality, that isn't often the case. So we recommend people will register with a state tax authority as soon as they become aware that they have Nexus in that state. The tax return is filed after the end of the tax year and will report that state's share of the profits.
So there's quite a lot to think about, particularly with so many different states. It must be important to take advice early.
Absolutely, Alex.